left off yesterday with 91-33, and next on the list will be 152-33. The chair recognizes Senator Muñoz Barnes.
Sijus Mahasi, Madam Speaker, Manana. Sijus, many of God's blessings. If I may, Madam Speaker, I'd like to move Bill 152-33 COR as substituted by the sponsor on the floor. I know that all my colleagues have a copy. I want to note that the reason why it was substituted was to adhere to the technical changes as recommended by legal counsel, stylistic changes. That's the only thing. Everything else is the same.
No, I don't have. One moment. Let me.
The Sergeant of Arms that passed it out yesterday.
Okay, so. Can we just briefly recess and make sure everyone has a copy? Senator Muñoz Barnes, then your motion to send Bill 152-33 as substituted by the sponsor. This will be, oh wait a minute, by the sponsor on the floor.
On the floor. And if I can speak on it, Madam Speaker?
So it's to accept first. Because
to accept, yes.
So on the motion to accept, no objection, so ordered. And now your other motion.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker.
So your motion to place on
if I can put 152-33 COR substituted by the sponsor on the floor on the third reading, and if I can please speak on it.
You may proceed.
Thank you. Madam Speaker, I'd like to thank my colleagues, Senator Mary Torres, Vice Speaker Cruz, and Senator Frank Blas, for helping me co-sponsor this legislation. It is an act to appropriate funds from the fiscal year 2014 Occupancy Tax Hot Surplus Fund to the Guam Visitors Bureau for the Guam Football Association for the purpose of hosting, attending, and participating in the FIFA 2018 Road Cup and the AFC Asian Cup in 2019. Madam Speaker, this year, 1.3 million people visited Guam. The only number in our books that tops that is 1.4 million, and that's a record set almost 20 years ago. I want to say, Madam Speaker, and my colleagues, that this number, this record is indicative of a new era of growth for our tourism industry. It's a clear sign that says we have a very real opportunity to not just bring more tourists to the island, but the time is right to really take diversifying our bread and butter industry to the next level. And today, we have more than just expensive ads and the delegation of local ambassadors from Guam Visitors Bureau to thank for that. Today, we have the finest of athletes and the proudest of Chamorros, young men whose passion, drive, and commitment to take their game to the next level took all of Guam with them, catapulting, shooting us to the headlines of broadcasts, print and internet, sports and media sites all around the world, not just for one news cycle and not just for one game. The men of Matao, Guam's most successful national sports team, are breaking records, raising recognition, and doing what we all say we strive to do every day: take Guam to the top. From Time Magazine's Madam Speaker in the U.S. to the Guardian in Europe, from the international broadcast network like CNN to big-name sports networks like ESPN, to foreign sports news websites, and on media outlets all throughout Asia. Soccer, or football as most of the world calls it, enthusiasts speaking hundreds of different languages around the world now know the name Matao. They know that they come from Guam, and thanks to the tens of thousands of live stream hits, hundreds of stories shared by thousands of people, and tens of thousands of more viewers on live broadcasts around the world, they now know that Guam, that we are a force to be reckoned with. Madam Speaker, today, my fellow senators, I am asking for your support to keep the Matao momentum going. Right out there in the public hearing room are members of the Guam Football Association. They are the backbone of Matao's success, and because of them, we might very well be on our way top-breaking that 1.4 million visitor record almost set 20 years ago. And I have to thank them right now because of their commitment and belief in Guam and the Matao team. Our visitor industry can already prepare to lock in nearly $1 million in revenues next year. Why, you may ask? Well, because of their professionalism, their support for the team, and their unbridled commitment to take our men's national team to the top, our tiny island in the Pacific has already been noticed, chosen, selected to host not one, but 2 East Asian Football Federation tournaments for more than 7 countries. Now, I have also, Madam Speaker, asked our Guam Football Association partners to provide me with some of the financial information, and I think it's important that I share some of these figures with you. First, in order to transport our Matao players between their homes, training, and away games, our 4 matches here on Guam and our 4 away matches, it did talk about the cost of $640,000, just for airfare alone. Add to that another $300,000 for hotel accommodations and team expenses, and you can see supporting our Guam's team is no easy feat. But Madam Speaker, with more than $100,000 already invested by the Guam Football Association for our local venue infrastructure improvements, along with their commitment to support the Matao team, they have already secured their own commitments from the East Asian Football Federations. And thanks to them, Guam can expect about $900 to be spent next month and in the summer of 2016. Huh? $900,000, I'm sorry. Yeah, Madam Speaker, 900,000 plus. Now, when was the last time, Madam Speaker, that happened to us? I know it was quite a number of years ago, many, many years ago. And are we going to let this year be the last time it happens to us? My colleagues, the $400,000 appropriation from the Tourist Attraction Fund for Bill 152 is already guaranteed to double our investment, financially speaking. Because of the success of the two Road Cup qualifying matches held recently, the East Asia Football Federation selected Guam to host the Boys Under 13 Festival with players from teams from Hong Kong, Chinese Taipei, Mongolia, Korea, Macau, and the Northern Marianas as early as next month. The East Asian Football Federation has already committed to spending $400,000 on this event. And next summer, Madam Speaker, as we celebrate the success of the Festival of the Pacific Arts, and we call that the Olympics of the Arts that will be in our region next year, Guam will be holding the Federation's men and women's preliminary competition. That budget for this event, Madam Speaker, is $500,000. Madam Speaker, and to my colleagues, these two events are only the beginning of what can be a major turning point for Guam sports tourism. Guam sports tourism vision. Professional teams beyond the sport of soccer, universities teams and school teams from throughout Asia are expected to spend anywhere from $30,000 per visit to more than $100,000 in the coming years. But let's look beyond the dollars and consider the most important benefits. The support for Guam's team to get higher in the road of professional sports than ever before, or the benefits of what Team Mattel can really do for the island by sharing our culture, strengthening our pride, and inspiring every young Guamanian athlete out there. It doesn't take much to do a quick internet search of the words Guam Mattel, to see that Bill 152 is more than just about appropriating money. It's about putting our money where our mouth is when it comes to telling the world that Guam is more than just a territory or a place to visit for sun, sand, and surf. Madam Speaker, it's a place where we can build sports camaraderie, a unique place where the best athletes in the world can come to train and prepare for the seasons ahead. I want you to know, Madam Speaker, and my colleagues, that this is a new opportunity for us to do what we always talk about. One, to diversify the tourism industry, our most important economic stronghold. There's that saying that you have to spend money to make money, and Bill 152 is a concrete example of how we are supposed to utilize resources like the Tourist Attraction Fund. If we're going to take from it, let us make sure that there already is a solid commitment to rebuild the fund. And number two, above all else, what we should do always be in the best interest of our people. And without a doubt, I want to say that Bill 152 supports more than just the Mattel or the Guam Football Association, because through them, Madam Speaker, We are inspiring thousands of young athletes and showing them that they can count on us to support the dreams and goals of all our Guamanians, to support all our people. Now, Madam Speaker, I know we've been encountering issues with available funding for appropriations made by my fellow senators, but I assure you, Madam Speaker, that this funding source is different. GFA, the Guam Football Association, has been reassured by the folks in Adelup that they will make this happen. To do otherwise would be detrimental not only to Matau, but for all of Guam Football Association as well. The appropriation we vote on today is very crucial because not having this funding, Madam Speaker, would mean the Matau team would have to forfeit the competition along with more than $300,000 in fines for the Guam Football Association. To my colleagues, our support today ensures that Matau, the men's national soccer football team representing our island, maintains its place in the road state. And more than that, Madam Speaker, our support helps to keep this dream alive. You know, Madam Speaker, when I was visited by the team most recently, they shared with me something that they share with the thousands, I mean almost several thousand kids that play in the game of soccer and football today. And when I looked at it, I really took it to heart because in this team of Guamanians, Team Matau, Team Guam Matau, they talk about the one word, believe. And in that, it says, para y honra, para y gloria, for the honor and the glory, for our athletes, for our children, for our island of Guam. And I want to say to the best ambassadors that they have shown to represent our island of Guam, I thank them for the beautiful gift that they've shared to me. And Madam Speaker, if I may, I'd like to share this because it talks about representing our island of Guam. This is who we are as island people, making a difference for Guam, making a difference for our athletes, educating, having that sense of discipline for education, not just for the sport of soccer, but making sure that they will be successful when they graduate from high school, when they graduate from college, and more importantly, when they are building families of their own to make a difference for their children and their grandchildren to come. And I say, Biba, Biba Matau, Biba Guam Football Association, and Biba Guam. And I ask my colleagues to join me in the spirit of taking this legislation and having them quadruple the return of investment by giving this to them and making sure that they will do better for our people. And it's about making that difference. So, Madam Speaker, thank you for giving me the opportunity. And I would just want to say, in their motto, believe. Sinamasi.
You're welcome, Senator. On the motion, okay, we're going to take a brief recess. On the motion, I have Senator McCready and then Senator Morrison who would like to speak, and Senator Torres on the motion. So, Senator McCready, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Wow, we don't have many opportunities to vote or to even vet a piece of legislation like this. This is a piece of legislation that guys like myself and Senator Morrison and maybe a few others in this hall grew up just kind of dreaming about how we could get funded to be more competitive. And I think as you look at the young gentlemen outside, they're men now, and I came to Guam nearly 20 years ago, and I've covered a lot of them in the sports arena. I've covered them when going on trips were more of an experience than an opportunity to win. And I look at them now, and it's no longer an experience. We're no longer spending money on an experience. We're actually spending money on victory and winning. And that tells you a lot from where we were yesterday and where we are today. And you can't just attribute that to growing up in sports. You have to make sure, as an athlete, the definition of a leader on a football field or a soccer field or a basketball court or a wrestling match, the true definition of a leader is making people around him or her better so the team would be successful in the end. And so my point to that, Madam Speaker, is this is not just about a soccer team. This is about a soccer community. This is about a sports community. This is about not just funding the Matao soccer team to go and compete and hopefully win an international competition. This is about paying back all those supporters, the sponsors, the parents, the officials, the coaches, the players, all the people that along the line. This isn't something that just happened yesterday. This is something that has been ongoing. It's a building block. And so this piece of legislation, Bill 152, symbolizes to me much more than just a soccer game. It symbolizes to me that Guam Soccer has put forth all the effort through the people and the coaches and supporters that I just mentioned to get to where we are today in the legislature, appropriating money so they can be successful. And this is not something that's unheard of. We send people off island all the time from this little island to international competition that are state funded all the time. States fund sports programs. And for the first time, I believe that an infusion of resources to this sports group, and I hate to call them exports, but they could be our only export that Guam has. We don't have an export. We import everything. So I think this is money well spent. And you have to give credit to the leadership of their coach. Because without that type of leadership, without that type of direction that is paving this path that has never been paved before, we wouldn't be here today. So you have to thank him as well, and you have to make sure that he's recognized as a true leader, and not just our soccer team Matao, but our community as well, because it was right. The retired speaker and the author of this bill, she's absolutely right. This inspires a different generation, a younger generation of not just soccer players, but athletes, because what you learn on the soccer field or the sports field, it's priceless. because you take that with you throughout your entire life. A lot of things that I've learned in sports I use here today in the session hall. And one of those things are working together, trying to get along, trying to move forward, forget about the last mistake, make sure you focus on the task that's in front of you. And always try the best every time out, because you never know when somebody's watching you for the very first time. Those are important aspects of what I think this $400,000 goes to. So for the general public watching, I want to make sure that it's not just about the $400,000 that we're trying to appropriate here. It's much more than that. It's about a lifestyle. It's about inspiration. It's about everybody who has chipped in to make this dream a reality. And hopefully, through victory, the reality outweighs the dream. So, Madam Speaker, it's a no-brainer for me. And I think you will hear that from the rest of the people in this body, whether they played sports or they haven't. This is something that we must do. And I know finances are tight, but we've been assured that there is revenue that exceeds this amount that we're trying to appropriate. And so let's appropriate it. Let's make sure that our island soccer team has all the resources they need to not just compete, not just have a great experience, but to win when they go off and play in international competition. So I thank you very much, and I wish them the best of luck, and they have my full support. Thank you.
You're welcome, Senator. On the motion, Senator Morrison, you recognize.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I want to thank the author and the co-authors of this legislation and their efforts to move this forward. And Madam Speaker, sometimes we spend a lot of time constructively criticizing some of the challenges of this government. But this has been one of the greatest investments that this government has ever made many, many years ago, when we allowed officials to sit down with the Football Association and to listen to their dreams, their visions, their objectives of how they want to set the stage forward with their programs to help develop our youth in Guam. Madam Speaker, we planted the seed. This government, we got to praise this government that saw the vision and the efforts of the leadership of the Football Association many years ago and planted the seed up in Harmon. And as we all know today, and we drive by today, that seed has flourished. We see thousands of kids every single week up there. And from that seed, we've seen what we have today is that, and the fruit of that labor, that we have developed a world-class team. Madam Speaker, when you hear a World Cup qualifier, I think you need to think about that and look it up, because I had an opportunity to come very close in a qualifier. We were one step away from qualifying for the Olympics. Of course, our dreams came up short. But Madam Speaker, at that time, we had the support of this government. We did have the support of the National Olympic Committee. We had support of our sponsors in the community, the businesses. And from that, Madam Speaker, we were able to develop programs, baseball programs. We developed the Elite Baseball Academy, and it was very difficult to get into that academy. But when you had that opportunity to get in there, you were able to be availed to the best coaches in town, mentors, and it helped develop us. And we were able to work our way through Asia, all the way to South Africa, through our Olympic qualifier. So, Madam Speaker, I have to some extent understand what these athletes and these leaders in the Football Soccer Association is going through. This is not easy. This is not easy, but it's rewarding because they are representing Guam. They're representing Guam in the world stage. Madam Speaker, this is also in line with our efforts with the author of this bill where we establish Public Law 33-10, the Sports Ambassador Program. And I thank her for working closely with me because maybe in the future that we would not have to have federations or leaders that are developing our youth have to sit out here in the room looking for support and have to go through this political process of trying to sway our votes. That shouldn't be necessary, Madam Speaker. They shouldn't be out there, but I thank them for being out there. Through the Sports Ambassador Program, and this is right up that alley, is that we can grow that. I thank you, Madam Speaker. I thank my colleagues for supporting that. We will have $200,000 in there, but we can grow that. So over time, there will be a mechanism in place, regardless of wherever senators, again, that organizations such as this can go to and seek the support through some mechanism without going through this process. So it's within that line, Madam Speaker. I traveled also, Madam Speaker, to different places, and I was very fortunate to get the chance to meet with different organizations. Madam Speaker, Senator McCready is right. Even in third world nations, Madam Speakers, their governments fully embrace their natural athletes. It's like a major reward if you work hard to get up onto that, make it onto these national teams. Your government will be behind you, at least halfway. And I think this is what we're doing here. We're meeting these leaders, these athletes halfway. We're helping them. And Madam Speaker, this is the model that I hope. I'm not a soccer player, but I certainly look to this organization as the model for all the federations out there that we could actually use to develop their sport that they're passionate about. And again, Madam Speaker, I wasn't a party to the partnership that was formulated, that established that relationship to develop the sport up in Harmon. And now it's translated where now there will be breaking ground very soon down south, where the sport has reached even kids within these village communities that are so isolated that they can't, just because of distance, they just can't participate in a very, very advanced sport. But I look to that dream taking place down south so that these athletes and these kids for the residents down south can participate in. So, Madam Speaker, I am in full support of Bill 152. This is not only taking care of what needs to be taken care of now, Madam Speaker, but it's in line of our efforts with Public Law 33-10, which will eventually address not only soccer, but when organizations grow to a level like this and competing on the world stage, we have to have a mechanism in place, which we did create, that they can actually go through and actually meet the criteria and qualify for these monies. And that's what we need to do. That. And Madam Speaker, you've been to many organizations. Many organizations, the South Pacific Games. You've been to many festbacks. But GVB is the right place for this program as well. And the reason why I say that is because a lot of times when these athletes come out, yes, they're ambassadors, they represent the island. But what we see in other places, as we travel the world, we've seen that their visitors bureau or their government is in the forefront or somewhere a party to making sure that they not only have their athletes representing Guam, but they showcase our culture, they showcase what we're about. And it's a win-win because athletes like the Football Federation, Association, are going places where are not really our true market destination. We spend millions of dollars in Japan. We spend millions and hundreds of thousands in Korea. Of course, we know where those monies are going. But these athletes are going places where are not our market destination. So you can look at this as why it fits perfect with GV, because it will be a win-win for not only competing in the world stage, but also for the Bureau to put together something that can further expand their marketing efforts with our ambassadors that are already bringing the understanding and awareness of what Guam is about. But that's what the hope is with this partnership with GVB. So, Madam Speaker, I applaud the sponsor, again, the co-sponsors for their efforts for making this work. It's something that and working with all of you here, I've been trying to do since my first term. And we got one of those measures through. And I believe that this is really, really something that we will continue to embrace going forward. So I wish the team of Matao, I thank them for representing Guam, the Football Association, their leadership for representing Guam well. Thank you.
You're welcome, Senator. On the motion, I have the following individuals who like to speak: Senator Torres, Vice Speaker, and Senator Nicholas. Senator Torres, you are recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The speakers before me encapsulated a lot of the practical intents of why we're doing this legislation. I'd like to speak in support of this bill on two grounds. One, I'd like to speak from the heart, and second, I'd like to speak from the mind. From the heart, we have a game, which is the world's game. It is the beautiful game. It is a game premised on fair play and rules of fair play. It is also the game that has opportunities for everybody. It requires so little to play. And that's why it has such far-reaching appeal to communities and people of every socioeconomic bracket. All it requires is a ball and a piece of land. And I was part of that initial group when there was no glamour to the Soccer Association, when we were out at the Robbie Weber field, lining it ourselves and picking the coral off of the ground so the kids didn't get hurt when they fell. But what we had then was a dream and a vision, a grassroots vision, to grow this beautiful game, because this game is all about inclusion, and it's all about bringing a community together and giving kids a sense of worth and inclusion. And what we've seen today is the result of a partnership that started very, very simply and very humbly, with good intentions and with a government committed to the goodwill of the island and its community, particularly its children. And so today we are looking at a bill to appropriate $400,000 to a team so that they can fulfill their obligations under the World Cup qualifying matches. And a lot of sports may wonder, well, why them? Why them is because this is an anomaly. We're in a pool of amongst competitions that are far, and it's extremely expensive. If we were in a pool where it was just people within our area, I'm sure we wouldn't be in this situation. But in order for them to participate, it's going to cost them $1.3 million total. We don't need a situation where our athletes have to worry about fundraising to every last dime. It's our obligation to make sure that these athletes, this national team, the team that represents us, it's not about them anymore. They represent us, our flag, our people, our hopes, our dreams, our aspirations. They carry that on their shoulders. We don't need to saddle them with the worry about car washing so that they can get a flight over to India. That's demoralizing. We shouldn't demoralize them. We should raise them up because they raise us up. And so I rise in support of this because what this is it's just a continuation of a commitment that this government made when it entered into a partnership with the Guam Football Association. The Guam Football Association was very resourceful in securing funding through FIFA, which is the governing body of soccer worldwide, and with our partners in the East Asian Football Federation. They've done their part. They've done great things for us. In this qualifying matches right now, we heard in the public hearings testimony about the exposure that they brought to this island. Good exposure, positive exposure, is worth more than we could pay for ourselves. So we owe it to them to support them. We have now Guam on the map. We've not only moved up in ranks in FIFA, which is very good for us, but we've also put Guam on the map to a lot of people that otherwise had no sense of where we are. So their value in terms of advertising dollars is great. The value in terms of advancing our sports tourism perspective is great. And we, I had mentioned in the public hearing and a comment to them that what they've given to us is really a drop in the bucket. This $400,000, you couldn't even buy a 20-second spot on CNN. And they've given that us. They've given us CNN, ESPN, countless other print media across the world. They've given us exposure, and we have to acknowledge that. But I speak from the heart in terms of believing in this sport and in believing in this organization and all the people who have given of themselves. A lot of our athletes are not the typical athletes who are on contract just to play. They are family members, some of them. They are heads of households with their own children. They are working young adults. And so for them to give 100% of themselves on top of 100% of their personal lives, we have to acknowledge that, and we have to give them kudos for doing what they do on behalf of the national team, on behalf of our island. So I rise in support of this bill. I think that, from a business perspective, it makes absolute sense, and we really can't be silly about it. Is a ton of money, but it can't even repay them for what they've given us in terms of advertising value and morale and inspiration to our island, especially our kids. And it also is, I believe, an investment in what we as a government are trying to do by expanding sports tourism, expanding tourism in general. So I want to, in closing, thank the sponsor of this bill for having the courage at this time in our government, when there are many, many needs, to look at the value of things that are not as obvious and to support those things that matter, because it does matter. And for the beautiful game, the all-inclusive game, the game that has gone from just a dream to something that's a tangible prospect, let's keep it going. As a government, let's put our money where it's been demonstrated to have paid off multiple times. Si Diyos masi.
You're welcome, Senator. On the motion, Mr. Vice Speaker, you recognize.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I'm a co-sponsor of this legislation, so my support is evident. I rise at this time because I've listened to the speeches that have been made, and it hurts me that we talk about the government supported and had the foresight for this. My biggest regret is that the one person who had the foresight in this Guam legislature to meet with the Guam Football Association, to work for the tax credits and the land to be given to the field, is no longer with us. His 60th birthday would have been yesterday. And I ask that we just rise in a moment of silence to acknowledge what would have been his 60th birthday yesterday. Thank you very much. And that government official was Vicente Cabrera Pangilinan.
Thank you very much, Mr. Vice Speaker. Senator Siniclis, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I couldn't have asked for a better prelude to what I have to say here about what we're doing here today. I've listened to a lot of what was shared about the reasons why this appropriation is an important thing to do. For me, I sit back and I reflect on really what the Matao and their achievements represent for our island and our community. They are proving that Guam can take on the world. They are proving that all we have to do is work hard, work as a team, come together for the love of our island, and take that spirit and win. They are proving that we can break through the barriers of long-standing assumptions that we can't do this, or we can't do that, or we can't go here, or we can't go there. They are proving that we can. And that is so important for where we need to take this island and for what the future of our island is going to bring for the generations that are going to come after us. Because as much as their achievements today are so important to our community, it's equally important that we not only invest in that, but build the program. And I'm not just talking about the soccer program. Build the program that is Guam. Because while we can have stars and superstars and amazing achievements today that prove that we are making breakthroughs in so many different ways, if we don't invest in the program, we're not going to continue to see those kind of results. They're going to be a flash in the pan, a blip in history. And that's not what we want this to be. I don't want the headline that Guam beat India to be the end of this story, any more than I want the headline of we rebuilt this school or we fixed this thing or that thing in this government to be the end of that story. But if we invest in the program, we're going to allow it to continue to grow, to continue to prove, and to continue to develop, and to continue to attract, not just the sports program, but the program that is the Guam we want to build. Our late colleague and I shared a lot of perspectives when it came to financial management. We wanted to make sure, not that we didn't spend, but that we invested properly. But there's a very big difference. There's a very big difference. Because it's one thing for us to go and take funds and resources and throw it in all these different places because, someone called us up and asked us to, or someone wants us to, help out their pet project or their small thing that they want to achieve. And we need to really have the discipline to be able to say, yeah, no, that's not in the best interest of our community. At the same time, we also need to have the open-mindedness to say, yes, that is in the best interest of our community. And surely, financing and capitalizing this movement that is proving that Guam can take on the world is an absolutely sound investment for this island and this territory. Not just today, but for the future. All we need to do is give them the resources and let them continue to make us believe in ourselves. It's not just a matter of, oh yeah, we can go and we can beat these guys in the field. If with our small investment and all of their heart and hard work, we can beat countries that are bigger and spending more, that is the message that we need to take back to our schools, to our children, into our villages, into our homes, through our media. that no matter how small we are or how little we invest relative to everywhere else, if we just make the investments that we can and we put in all the effort that we got and all of the heart that we got and truly do it for the love of this island and our people, we can take on the world. That is what they're teaching us. That's what they've taught me. That's what they've reinforced with me. I absolutely support investing in that. That's the message that we need to bring into our community, not only with this bill, but with our support for them, because they are bringing that message right back here to Guam. It's not just about the sport. It's about the people. It's about what this island can achieve. We can take on the world one small program at a time. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome, Senator. On the motion, Senator Frank Blas Jr.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Just very shortly, I just want to thank the author for the opportunity and the honor to be able to co-sponsor this piece of legislation. You know, I sat through the public hearing of this, and one of the things that I was particularly interested in was the return of investment that this funding would be able to provide. And while colleagues before me had talked about, you know, the great things and the history of how we got here and why we're here, I had to look at it from the standpoint of what is this money going to go to? And, you know, it's quite interesting because, you know, a lot of times when we talk about the return of investment, we think in the sense of money. I'm thinking more in the sense of pride. When you think about what we're going to do and what we're going to be funding, I liken this to the story, the biblical story of David and Goliath. Because when you look at it, when you have the chance, the opportunity, and you've got the skill and the passion and the heart to get together and represent an island of only 170,000 people, a race of less than, probably right now, less than 300,000 people, a legacy that lasts over 4,000 years. I'm very proud of these gentlemen because, as was stated earlier, on their shoulders rides the aspirations and the hopes of all of our kids and everybody else on this island who wish to move up to that next step. And to thank, and this community should thank them for the passion and the commitment they have and the drive that they have. Because the doors that they open, and they've already opened for a number of our people, for a number in our community, not just in the football world, not just in the soccer world, not just in the sports world, but otherwise, was tremendous, is enormous. You know, Madam Speaker, you and I have had on occasion, a lot of times gone off to places where we wanted to be able to talk about the plight of people of Guam, and half the time, half of our conversation is spent on having to explain where Guam's at. What these gentlemen have managed to do is to help us to reduce that necessity. Because now the conversation is Guam. Wow, you got an awesome soccer team. You know how much that has helped? So when I look at what we're asking for to be able to provide to them, when I look at the return of investment, I look at all the opportunities and the aspirations and the dreams that they've opened up for everybody else. Because we can peg a number to the cost that it would be had we decided that Guam wanted to put a commercial, you know, in one of the games, or wanted to put a banner in one of the stadiums. these guys are always, they've lifted Guam, and Guam is always there now. One of the things that I appreciate is that short but very significant presentation by the goodbye speaker, because he's right. You know, one of the things I recognize and I remember about that man, that fine gentleman, is despite that, many of us, me included, have had many arguments with him, for lack of a better term. He was a very protective man with regards to resources. He wanted to make sure that the T's were crossed and the I's were dotted. I stand here today to say that that man, that fine gentleman, had the vision. And that vision is what's before us today. That taking and helping to develop this piece of property into one of the finest facilities that we have, not just on Guam, not just in the region, but in the world, has helped to produce world-class athletes, to represent world-class people, and to represent a world-class island. So if we start to think about how much money we're spending, think of what we've just invested in and what we're going to invest in. Thank you, Madam Speaker, for this opportunity. And I rise in support of this piece of legislation.
You're welcome, Senator. On the motion, Senator Espadon, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. You know, it wasn't too long ago, a few years back, when I remember when the whole movement of getting people on this island to learn soccer and got underway. And then I remember reading about some of our teams going off island to challenge teams from other countries. And I would follow them in the news as closely as possible just to see where we stood against some of the foreign country teams. And it was a little bit disheartening, but I was still proud because we were getting beat by double digits. Something along the lines, and I'll make up a score, but it's probably in this neighborhood. You know, it'd be something like, 13-1, and that's kind of unheard of in soccer, or maybe even more of a disparity in scores between. And yet I still always rooted for our team because we were out there challenging them. And I always wondered how long would it take until we came to that level that we could actually be competitive and even win a few games. I tell you, Madam Speaker, it hasn't taken too long. We're there now. And I'm excited about this bill. I'm excited about supporting this cause because it has taken a few short years that now we are actually on everybody's radar. We may not be in the top 10, we may not even be in the top 50, but we're on everybody's radar just because of how fast we're moving forward and moving up. And that has brought attention. And it's been said by all the colleagues and all the previous speakers before that we're getting a tremendous amount of media exposure just because of this team, because of the sport and the way we're going out there and showing that we are capable of competing, as one good colleague put it, competing against world-class teams. And here we have a world-class team of our own. You know, even just yesterday, Madam Speaker, I was talking to somebody who was saying, yeah, but, you know, it's soccer. We're a baseball, basketball, football island. And I had to correct him. I said, if you go out to the fields on the weekends, you'll see that this sport, football, as it's called internationally, but soccer, as we know it locally, is the fastest growing sport on this island. And one of the good senators also, who was a co-sponsor of this, she even mentioned that she was within this sphere of trying to develop this whole sport on island from the very beginning. And that wasn't that many years ago. And so with this little bit of support that we can give them, I believe that they'll take it. If we give them an inch, they're going to take it a mile. And I look forward to that. I look forward to rooting for this team all the way. I think the whole island is excited about it. And we can't help but support it. We need to support this legislation. Send them on their way, have them compete to the highest of their abilities, bring back their experience, share it with our own local soccer players, and have that whole new generation of soccer players after them move up and do just as well, if not better. I stand in full support. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome, Senator. On the motion, Senator Espicio, you recognize.
Thank you very, very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, a lot has been said this morning about why this bill is absolutely important for us to pass, and hopefully to pass this bill unanimously. And I appreciate the time that we're spending this morning so we could convey to the local community that we have a lot to be proud of as an island community with respect to how far this organization has gone just over the last 10 years. And I'm very happy, Madam Speaker, that our Vice Speaker took the time for us to recognize the tremendous efforts and the support of the late Speaker Ben Pangilinan, who provided, through his leadership, to provided a lot of the opportunity to bring this organization and this association where it is today. And certainly there are a lot of people that are involved in the successes of the whole Guam Football Association, and this legislature can append, be proud also by appending support for these ongoing successes and their ongoing work to provide for these healthy alternatives for our island children. And it's true, you go there in any given weekend and you almost see an entirely community within a community. And this is a group of individuals, as Senator Torres pointed out, that it's the fact that they come together as a family is what makes them stick together as a family through good times and bad times. And I certainly know that when they first started out, like any organization, any family has its challenges, but now they could, because of the work that they've done, because of the credibility that they have, and it's very easy for the legislature and for the community, and particularly the administration, the governor, to say, I want to do whatever I can to support an organization like this. If you just look at what they've been able to do with the matching grants that this government has provided, even though the matching grant is dollar for dollar, you know very well that the dollar that was put into starting the facility and the amount of investment that FIFA put into that facility and amount of private sector, local investors that put into that facility, you could see that the rate of the return on the investment is more than just 1-to-1. If you go to that facility, I'm so proud too to point out that they're using energy efficiencies. They have solar panels there. I mean, it's well maintained, it's clean. They take a lot of pride. There's no graffiti there. They take a lot of pride in how they maintain that facility, and so much so that when you have other off-island visiting teams go there, when they recently had the exhibition matches there, you can hear and experience nothing but good feedback with respect to how that facility is being maintained. So much so that when you had the international media there, they were able to make money by having that match broadcast live and streaming online and HD. And so they've proven that they are able to provide the technology to share with the world what's happening at that time. They also have the ability to be very concerned and for our environment by having solar panels and renewable energy and efficiencies there. They've demonstrated their ability to create a responsible community by having all that go there, pick up after themselves, and really, really take care of that facility. And along those lines, they've proven that the participants and the players that they're able to motivate and mentor, it's not just about playing soccer or football or however you want to call it. It's they take care of that player holistically. And most recently, this legislature provide an additional $600,000 that's also going to be a matching grant, so they can provide for classroom facilities. And so when they're there training for the sport, they also have to be there to continue to strengthen their mind, and they're going to be exposed to some education criteria and tutoring and things like that. So what I'm presenting to the body is that it's, in addition to everything that this island has done to support this organization and how we've seen this organization grow over the last 10 years, the additional $400,000 is just going to continue to put Guam in a better light and to show that this is really a great return on the investment if you quantify all the media that they receive and will receive. I mean, GVB spends tens of millions to market Guam in this very way, and in this case, we're getting this for $400,000. So I rise to commend the sponsor of this bill, who has oversight over tourism, to kind of recognize, along with her, that this is something that the Guam Visitors Bureau exists to take these tourist attraction monies and invest them in a way that can provide more opportunity for the international community to want to see that Guam is a good destination to go to have a vacation, and it's a family-oriented destination. And so I think, Madam Speaker, I've said enough, but more so to stress that this is, we get a really big return on this $400,000 investment, and it's consistent with what so many people have done over the years to bring the Guam Football Association and its leadership there. Richard Lai, certainly, and his group has done a lot to make sure that the credibility of what they're doing, they've had clean audits. There's never any hint of any wrongdoing within anything that they've done. And I think their credibility is so high that we even have our current Chief Justice who sat on the Ethics Committee, and he had a very tough decision to make. And that just speaks to how well these individuals are doing in this international arena, and Guam is no small fish in that big pond. I think now we're showing that Guam is a force to be reckoned with, and if we continue to provide for these kinds of investments and these kinds of activities, and we throw good money into good system, it's only going to get better. So I rise in support of the bill, and I congratulate everyone involved, and I only look forward to many more things that can happen, not only in Harmon, but we did the same thing for this organization to replicate everything that's happening in Harmon, to have that done in the South, and the Agate Mayor is certainly behind that effort, and the Guam Football Association is working hard. The property's been identified, because there's a lot more children and families on this island that want to participate in all that's happening in the Harmon sports facility there, but the drive time is just too long to have to go from down south up north. So everything that's happening in up north in Dedido, in a matter of time, that whole activity is going to be replicated down south. And so good things are yet to come, and if we continue to support these kinds of initiatives, we can continue to see these kinds of great results. So thank you, Madam Speaker, for the opportunity to rise in support of the bill.
You're very welcome. Okay, Senator Munia Barnes, you want to close?
Situs Masi, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I'd like to thank all my colleagues who spoke this morning in support of this bill, and realizing that truly if we build it, they will come. More importantly, Madam Speaker, at this time, before I do a final closing, if all those who spoke on today's deliberation of Bill 152, if they could be co-sponsors of this measure, I would appreciate that on a motion.
Okay,
And Dennis Rodriguez
and
to
the, and the list
and
are,
the,
of course,
and the rest of my colleagues.
okay, so
It's just all about inclusion. It's all about
okay, so the order in which I've listed and called them was McCready, Morrison, Torres already, she's on, the Vice Speaker is on, San Nicolas, Frank Blas is already on. Espau, Don, Respicio, Rodriguez, and all others. Thank you very much on that motion. Without any objection, so ordered.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I do know today that there is an angel watching over us, and I know that if the late Speaker Ben Pangilinan were alive today, he would truly see the vision of what he dreamed would be a full success, not just for our island of Guam, but more importantly for the children. When the Guam Football Association, our soccer community, shared with us that they too have an education program that will keep those who are involved in soccer truly committed and disciplined in the education that they receive, that the education from school will still come to the class, to the venue, the sporting venue, and that in order for you to get on the field to even practice, train, or play, that your homework, your classwork had to be completed, and that if there was any player that needed support, that there were teams of volunteers and tutors that would be there to help these athletes. I'm saying now I know that the vision that Speaker Ben sold was real, that the commitment that the football organization gave to this August body and to this government is that if you give us a little of the resources that we need to help us out, we will not just double that, we will quadruple that, and we will not stop working, and we will continue to grow. And as you hear the presentations of everybody in this room that talked about how we started, how the good senator of Santa Rita spoke about having to pick up the cascal, the rocks from the field so that the kids don't get hurt, to where we're at today. The buildings, the artificial turf, the pride that the athletes have, the pride that the players from the different villages who play on the different leagues that are there today. I can't wait to see that same vision down in the South that Senator Respicio spoke about. And when the Vice Speaker asked us to rise for a moment of silence for Speaker Ben, I just know he's saying, "Tongklo na si Diyos masi," for following the vision that I know that if we build it, they will come. So, Madam Speaker, I thank my colleagues for today's presentation. I thank the Guam Football Association. More importantly, I thank Team Mattel and their family for being out there today, because they truly exemplified the true heartbeat of our island in representing Guam as ambassadors to the rest of the world. And we will carry this heart and this vision of who we are as island people to the rest of the world. So, Undunkel and Nasitso Smasi, thank you for giving me this opportunity to put this bill and motion this bill into the voting file, and thank everybody in this August body for truly believing in Team Mattel and Guam. Sanamasi.
On the motion to send 152-33 to third reading file without any objections, so ordered. Thank you, Senator. Bill number 164-33, Senator Tom Atta, you are recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move to accept Bill 164-33 as amended by the author.
Do we all have the copy of the amended one? Okay, make sure, can everyone please check your folder? And it says as amended by the author.
As amended by the author.
Okay, Senator, all right, so as amended, placed in third reading, and you would speak on it. You may proceed, Senator.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, Bill 164-33 pertains to the providing authorization that the sale of bull cart trails and land remnants belonging to the government of Guam be authorized and to create a Chamorro Land Trust Survey Fund where the proceeds from these sales would be deposited into, and that these proceeds then will be used solely for the surveying of Chamorro Land Trust lands, which is a prerequisite before these properties can be distributed out for residential and agricultural leases. Now, in the bill, basically it does three things. One, it authorizes the sale of bull cart trails with the approval of the commission. And it does, second thing that it does is it sets certain parameters as to the circumstances when these lands can be, can in fact, the bull cart trails and the land remnants can in fact be sold to private property owners. One is that the bull cart trail, which today has really lost its utility function, the transportation function that it was originally intended for, because in many cases it starts at one end of a private property and ends at the other, and it's landlocked and just does not serve the transportation function that it was originally intended for. And so in Section 2, it outlines the circumstances when these bull cart trails and land remnants can be sold. And that is basically it provides 7 criteria. One is that the land is not contiguous to government property. So that way, if the bull cart trail is contiguous to government property, you want to keep it as a piece of public property so that the government land is not diminished. Secondly, that the sale price is based on appraised market value. And thirdly, if the property extends into property other than that belonging to the applicant, the landowner that's applying to purchase the property, and if it's going right down the middle, for example, and it's bounded on either side by private property, that then each private property owner will be given equitable opportunity to at least purchase half of that bull cart trail. And of course, notice of the application shall be given to all owners of land within 500 feet. And so I think the criteria that has been given really covers the various situations where these bull cart trails and land remnants exist. And finally, of course, as I said, it creates a Chamorro Land Trust Survey Fund. I should point out that this survey fund is similar to the survey fund that was proposed to be created in Bill 175, but of course, you cannot presume that a certain bill is going to be created, and so that's the similar fund is being created under this bill so that there's a place to deposit these proceeds and that the use of those funds is in fact dedicated strictly for the surveying, for the survey of Chamorro Land Trust properties to satisfy the prerequisite for distribution. So I request my colleagues to favorably consider the bill and vote for the bill. Thank you very much.
You're welcome, Senator. On the motion, Bill 164. Is there any objections then to send 164-33 to the third reading file without any objections? So ordered. Thank you, Senator Ada. Bill number 166, Senator Rodriguez, you're right. Oh, you want to go back to that then first? Okay, so 76, I'm sorry. Senator Rodriguez, you're recognized.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, and good morning. Madam Speaker, I first would like to make a motion to accept Bill 76 as substituted by the sponsor on the floor. And also to, that's on.
Can you repeat that, Senator? 76 as introduced,
As substituted,
as
the floor.
substituted.
it was just passed out.
It was just, okay, can, let me, one moment. Can we take a brief recess and make sure everybody has a copy? In session, okay, I think everyone now has a copy. So to X 76. So on the motion then to accept 76 as substituted by the sponsor on the floor, no objections? So ordered. On the motion now to place the third reading, and you'd like to speak on it, Senator, you may proceed.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, Bill 76 is a request from the Department of Public Health and Social Services. It's actually been an issue that they have been trying to get resolved by the Guam Legislature since 2009. What it is, Madam Speaker, it simply clarifies and it clarifies, number one, what the qualifications of the territorial epidemiologists should be, and also with the changes we're making here on the substitute version, makes it easier for them to recruit physicians or individuals with similar qualified who have graduated from a similar degree program. One fact, Madam Speaker, is that the current existing pay of our epidemiologists, I get tongue twisted with that, but the current pay is not competitive, and so that's why it's very hard to be able to recruit someone for this position. And so with this now, we're hoping to be able to open up the opportunity for others to be able to qualify and open up the pool of applicants so that we could, in fact, be able to attain and recruit a individual for this position. So I ask my colleagues to please support this measure. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
You're very welcome, Senator. On the motion of Bill 76, I want to make sure everybody here can pronounce epidemiologist. Okay, so on that motion, then 76, that's okay, Senator Espardan, you recognize.
Thank you,
I
Madam
want to
Speaker.
hear you repeat that, please.
But the epidemiologist, that one?
I can tell your mother is a doctor, my father.
Actually, I just have a question in what the to the author, and it was not so much on what's written down here, but kind of what he said in the last part of his opening on this bill, and that had to do with that the pay situation. And I'm not sure how that's related to this bill. Is there a relationship between this being introduced and increasing the pay to the epidemiologists? I'm just wondering how that is even
Senator, do you
rational.
yield to the question?
Can you repeat the question, please, Madam Speaker?
Senator, can you repeat it?
Yeah, bottom line is that towards the end of the good senator, the good author's opening on this particular bill, he brought up an issue of underpayment, and I'm not sure how it relates to this bill. If he could just perhaps elaborate on that statement.
Sure,
Senator?
Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the existing law now is that the qualifications to be that position, there you go,
Epidemiologist.
is that you must be a physician, a Guam licensed physician, or a veterinarian. And so when you look at the pay that we're paying for this position, it's really, it makes it difficult because it's not a highly paid position. And so what we're trying to do here now is just open up that pool to others with some similar experience, or who graduate from a program, professional program, that also has that experience. So I hope I've been able to answer that. In terms of pay, this particular legislation does nothing to amend or revise what the pay is for this position.
Senator Espadon then?
Again, I just wanted to understand what the whole issue was on the pay and how this
Oh.
moves towards that direction.
I think if you're going to get anyone with these type of credentials, they need to reconsider then the salary as well.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and that was my thoughts exactly, but
Yeah.
thank you.
So hopefully then that maybe at that level now, that they would consider that. Because usually that's the case, is hard to recruit. Senator Frank Blas Jr., you recognize.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And maybe we would like the author to yield to a question with regards to page 1, line 11, and page 2, line 1. I noticed on page 1, line 11, we say a Guam physician's license. And then on page 2, line 1, we say a Guam licensed veteran. Or veterinarian. Sorry.
Senator
Got me all confused,
Rodriguez,
epidemiologist.
do you yield to?
And the reason why,
Oh.
and I saw that he understands why my concern here, is one appears to be you need to get a license from Guam, and the other one means you have to be from Guam.
Okay, so Senator?
Yes, thank you, Madam Speaker. Yes, Madam Speaker, and I understand, we work with legal counsel, it's just a stylistic change that needs
Okay.
to be made, so.
All right, so we'll then have legal counsel make that technical correction then in page
then it'll
1,
be
line
a
11.
licensed on Guam.
Yes, yes.
Thank you very much.
Okay. You're welcome, Senator. On the motion, is there anybody else who would like to speak on the position of an epidemiologist? Senator Tom Adak. I just love that word.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. If the author would yield, on page 2, line 12 there, one of the other qualifications that will be accepted is an MD degree from an American Medical Association approved medical school, or a Guam licensed veterinarian with a minimum of 2 years of experience in the field of epidemiology. Now, I guess the first question that I have is, and I think this was brought up at the public hearing, is that an individual, I guess, may have gone through the academics, received the MD degree, but I guess did not go through the internship and whatever other practical training that follows afterwards so that they can practice. But I guess they still carry the title of doctor, but it's not licensed. But in the first case there, the person has an MD degree from an AMA approved medical school, but it does not require experience in epidemiology the way that it is required in a veterinarian. So I recall at the public hearing, I asked, well, what if the individual got a degree and again, I don't know, so let's say I got a degree in, I really don't know about degrees, but does an orthopedist who decides now that he wants to become an epidemiologist, but has an MD degree, does he then make a good candidate to be an epidemiologist in comparison to your veterinarian who I guess went through medical training, but on animals, four-legged patients, as opposed to a two-legged patient, and has experience in the field of epidemiology. And so I'm a little confused by that. So should the individual with the MD degree, should he also be required to have some experience in epidemiology? That's one question. The second question that I have is that it is very clear on page 1 there that the individual with an MD degree, he just, must be, the degree must be from an AMA approved school, medical school. But the veterinarian, the individual who's a veterinarian, and again, I don't know what the licensing requirements are, but does that veterinarian, could he have gotten that in a foreign country and still be licensed? I don't know what the requirements are. And then finally, we come down basically to the other possible choices is that an individual who has a master's in public health with an epidemiology major or a graduate degree in epidemiology, both from a U.S. accredited college or university, and with 1 to 2 years of experience in the field of epidemiology. So the new trend seems to be, especially you can see, for example, if one takes a look at the law for the professional engineering architects and licensed surveyors law, it is now opening up the field because you may have institutions in foreign countries that are recognized by U.S. institutions, or they are allowed, as long as they've gone through the curriculum, and they are allowed to sit and take the exam, and if they can pass the exam, they are allowed to then be given the professional engineering registration. So maybe if the author can kind of expound a little bit on expanding the pool so that we recognize graduates from foreign institutions that actually have some kind of recognition from U.S. institutions. Thank you.
Senator, do you yield to the question?
Yes, Madam Speaker, and I'm going to ask if he can repeat the first two, but the last one I can try to answer. Is that I unfortunately was not able to be at the public hearing, but I did read the committee report, and I know that the good senator had brought up that issue during the public hearing, and to address that, that's why we've come up with these changes here on the floor. If you look at page 2, line 9, I believe that's where we're addressing his, not so much his concern, but his, his, at least what he's brought up in terms of those who may have graduated from a foreign institution. So that's why we're allowing that to happen. And if you read line 9, it's a graduate degree in epidemiology from a non-U.S. accredited institution, and then requiring them to have 4 years of experience in the field. And so I'm hoping that this section, or this line here, this requirement here would open it up to those who are not graduates of a U.S. accredited institution. And just to add to, Madam Speaker, these qualifications, these requirements are what we've worked together with the department, with Dr. Kaneshiro there, who is in tune and in line with what the current trends are and what could be acceptable as we move this forward. So I just want to state that. But for the other two questions, if I can ask, if we can just repeat the first two.
Entrada, can do one question at a time. So your first question?
Yes,
You answered
Madam-
your third, but now we want the first and second.
Yeah, so the first question is on, if we on page 1 there, an alternative requisite is an individual with an MD degree, but experience in epidemiology is not required. So, so then the example that I gave is that I'm an orthopedist. I decide I don't want to do orthopedic work anymore. I'll go ahead and apply for, I'll apply now to be for the position because I do have the MD degree, but I have no experience in epidemiology. The experience, the same a requirement that's otherwise required for the veterinarian. Veterinarian who now is tired of treating four-legged patients. He now wants to become an epidemiologist, but he is required to have 2 years of experience in epidemiology.
Okay, so Madam Speaker, I'm going to attempt to answer that. On the requirement, on the requisite here that it be an MD degree from an American Medical Association approved school without requiring a experience in the field, I can only assume. This is what was provided to me by the department. I can only assume because of the level of degree of an MD that an extra requirement of having experience is not required. And if you take a look at the original bill as introduced, originally it was to remove the requirement of being a licensed vet on Guam. And so based on the public hearing, based on further discussion and work with the department, it was determined that even for myself, I was kind of surprised as why would you have a veterinarian do this kind of work? And our existing epidemic. Speaker, go ahead. This is your time to say it. Our existing. You're going to help me translate it, right?
Oh, epidemiologist.
There you go.
Existing epidemiologist.
So is actually a vet. He's actually a licensed vet, and so and so in discussions we wanted to ensure that and it's nothing new. If you look at other jurisdictions in the nation, these vets hold these positions, and so the reason why we wanted to include it here now with a minimum of 2 years experience is just to ensure that we preserve the existing position for the current holder if he does so desire to continue. So that's the best I could answer why we're saying an MD degree but not requiring the additional experience. And the second question?
The second question, Centrada.
Well, I think that was really probably my main question, why the guy with the MD degree is not required to have any experience in epidemiology the way that a veterinarian is required. And I'm not really convinced that. Again, I'm speaking admittedly more so probably out of ignorance that I don't know whether an individual with an MD degree, an orthopedist, for example, what exposure they've had to epidemiology. So I do have concerns about that. I mean, I don't understand why we don't put in the requirement of the minimum of 2 years experience in the same way that we require that of the veterinarian.
And Madam Speaker, I'm very open if the senator moves an amendment. I don't think it would hurt to include that.
Okay. Thank you, Senator. So Senator Ada, you still have the floor then? I mean,
Fine,
he's
so-
amenable to what it is that you're concerned about if you want to
Yes, ma'am.
make an amendment.
So I would like to make an amendment then on page 1, line 12 there, put in the language, see, it will read, or a MD degree from an American Medical Association approved medical school with a minimum of 2 years experience in the field of epidemiology. That same phrase that you find on line 1 and 2 on page 2.
Yes. So on page 1 then is to add the words with a minimum of 2 years of experience in the field of epidemiology, and that will be for the MD degree.
Yes.
On that amendment, no objections? So ordered. Senator, you still have the floor?
Second, Madam Speaker, is that on page 2, line 9, we will, according to this, we will also accept. Well, first of all, on line 8 on page 2, is that supposed to be an or? So we're gonna, so anybody can, qualifications for the epidemiology is that you have a Guam physician's license or an MD degree with 2 years minimum experience. 3, or if you're a licensed veterinarian. 4, you have the MPH, then you have the MSPH or PhD or a graduate degree in epidemiology with 4 years of experience, right? So I think then at the end of line 8, we should add the word or, because now the individual with a graduate degree from a non-U.S. accredited institution is now another option.
Okay, so add the or after, at the end of line 8. Because everyone in the above, to make it consistent, I guess, with the above, is that to add the word or. Any objections? No objections? So ordered.
And finally, Madam Speaker, I'm an advocate for expanding the pool that we can choose from, and to recognize the fact that we do have non-U.S. accredited institutions that probably would produce, graduates who may be well qualified to be epidemiologists. But my frame of reference is in the engineering field, is that they would recognize somebody who's graduated from a foreign institution, but somehow has a linkage to another accrediting body from the U.S. mainland. I'm not sure what the equivalent would be here. I would like to make the amendment that we, at this point, not knowing how we can tie that in to ensure that non-U.S. accredited institution is in fact something, take for example, if I'm correct, I think, for example, the medical school at University of the Philippines, I believe, receives also recognition from an accrediting body from the United States. So at this point, I would be simply guessing, and I wouldn't want to hold up this bill. And I would just move that we strike lines 9 through 11.
Okay, on that amendment, Senator Rodriguez, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I believe that striking this line 9 to 11 would be really counter to what the good senator wishes to do, which is to expand the pool. And really, this was, I've come to this, to this point in ensuring that we have some language here based on the public hearing when he had also, stated his concern about, look, if we want to really expand the pool, there are foreign institutions that could produce individuals that could very well be our who could fit in this position. And so I'm afraid by removing it completely, we just close the door. And perhaps yeah, so I would at this time, Madam Speaker, just respectfully object to that removal.
Okay. So there is an objection then for the deletion of lines 9 to 11 on page 2. Senator Ada, you want to speak on it, on your amendment?
Yes, Madam Speaker, and to my point, on this island you would find many individuals who have engineering degrees that from a 4-year institution, a non-U.S. accredited institution. They have the 4 years degree, they basically got their degrees. But many of those same individuals are not able to get their professional license because they just can't. So I'd ask my colleagues to carefully consider this, and I think with the amendments that we have right now, we've opened the pool considerably so that we are not tied to, just one option and one criteria. I think we've opened it up enough, and if we can come back later and find how we might ensure that in fact that individual who is a graduate of a non-U.S. accredited institution, how we can tie that in with otherwise, otherwise we're going to have candidates who went through U.S. institutions, and they might get aced out by somebody who went to a non-accredited institution, and we don't have any idea of the standards that institution was following. So I would just ask my colleagues to consider, striking that so that we can at least, and we can come back later to fix that. But I think we've got enough options here now to open that pool.
Okay. Can we take a brief recess? Mr. Vice Speaker, you want to speak on I know because we had.
I just, if somebody could answer the question, I could stand to be corrected, but I thought that we allow doctors to get a license on Guam who may have graduated from a foreign institution but did their residency in the United States. And it would seem to me that this provision is fairly similar in that it allows for a non-U.S. institution, but with a residency under a licensed epidemiologist.
But we're talking on lines 9 to 11. That
Yeah, it says a graduate degree in epidemiology from non-U.S. accredited institution with at least 4 years of experience designing, overseeing, implementing, and conducting epidemiological studies related to public health. I guess the only difference is that it's not a U.S. residency or training in the U.S. So that's the only difference I see. But I just thought that we do allow for non-U.S. Educated doctors to get their residency elsewhere and come here. Maybe that might be the way that this thing can be tightened. I'm not trying to tighten it, but
Okay. So I guess you've heard the arguments and from Senator Ada, and then of course Senator Rodriguez had objected for the deletion of lines 9 to 11. So I'm going to call for the vote then, since there's an objection. All in favor of the deletion on page 2, lines 9 to 11. Please read that particular lines. So all in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, the amendment failed. So continuing on, Senator Ada, do you have anything else to add? Okay. On the motion, is there anybody who would like to speak on bill number 76-33? There being none, so Senator, you want to close or send it down? So on the motion to send 76-33 to the third reading, file without any objection, so ordered. Bill 166-33, Senator Rodriguez, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, move to place Bill 166-33 on the third reading and be
Is
allowed.
it as introduced?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, you may proceed, Senator.
Thank you. Madam Speaker, Bill 166 is an act to repeal and reenact sections 103, 120 of Title 10, Guam Code Annotated. And what this really does, Madam Speaker, is reestablishes the Banking and Insurance Enforcement Fund so that once we reestablish it, we can ensure that the current fees that are paid for filing of application for certificate of authority, and you can find on page 3 what I'm going to reference here, as well as applications for the renewal of that certificate of authority and a few others would now be deposited into the into the Banking and Insurance Enforcement Fund. Current statute does already establish this fund. However, upon our research and in collaborations with the different departments that are involved, this fund was never activated. It was never used because if you look at a different section of the law, which is section 15110, chapter 15, title 22, Guam Code Annotated, it requires that these fees are deposited into the general fund. And so there was a conflict in the language of the establishment of the Insurance Enforcement Fund and that section that I just referenced. And so, the first fund, the Insurance Enforcement Fund, was never activated and therefore never had any activity. And so what we'd like to do is make it perfectly clear that the fees that are generated through the applications and the different items that are listed on page 3 are deposited into this Banking and Insurance Fund so that we really give the tools necessary for the insurance commissioner to be able to carry out his responsibilities, especially as it relates to facilitating health insurance reform practices. Later on in this term, hopefully we'll be able to entertain several other pieces of legislation that would reform some of the health practices on island, and that ensuring, number one, first, that the insurance commissioner has the resources to hire specialized individuals, to hire an actuarial to provide services. Then we need to ensure that there's resources to do that. And so I'm hoping that my colleagues will see the importance of passing this legislation. It also has a provision here, Madam Speaker, that really gives the insurance commissioner some flexibility in terms of being able to adjust the fees. I think we see a lot of times we set fees statutorily, and not give the opportunity for our departments and agencies to be able to adjust these fees. We know we have a special provision for the Guam Memorial Hospital, for example, that gives them the flexibility to adjust rates within 5%. And if it's beyond that, then they go through the process, the AAA process, in which ultimately comes down here for further scrutiny. And so with this measure, Madam Speaker, it gives the commissioner, of course, in consultation with the Banking and Insurance Board, which this body confirms its members, the authority to adjust the fees. And let me just address, I know that we indicate here not to exceed 15% per year. You know, I again, you know, it's about being able to trust and have confidence in these commissions that we hear confirm that really it's not going to be a tool that's used for them to just simply be able to raise fees and not make a justified reason why these fees need to be adjusted. And so, you know, the bottom line, it's to ensure that at least the cost of doing business, the cost of being able to function and carry out the mandates that this body places on them are carried out, that this is really the minimum that we could do to provide these tools for them. So I'm asking my colleagues for their support. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome, Senator. On the motion for 166, does anyone like, Senator Espaldon, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'll wait a minute just because I'd like to
I was
ask a
wondering the
question.
same thing. We'll take a brief recess.
Thank you. Take a break, Madam Speaker.
Legislature's back from recess. Senator Espaldon, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I was wondering if the good author would yield to a question or two or three or four.
Go ahead and state your inquiry, please.
Well, thank you. The first one would be that, and the preface of this is that on the findings and intent, it states that the legislature takes due notice that the source of previous funding was redirected to the general fund, and that the Banking and Insurance Enforcement Fund itself was eliminated. And I was wondering if he might give us a little insight into why the fees associated with the fund were repealed previously and redirected to the general fund.
Senator Rodriguez, would you like to answer that one?
Yes, thank you, Madam Speaker. And I'll repeat what I said earlier in my opening, is that yes, there is a statute that creates the Insurance and Banking Enforcement Fund. However, there was another statute that that directs the fees generated from these fees that I listed here that are directed to the general fund. And so that being the case, that even if that fund was created, it was never activated. No funds were ever deposited into that, and so therefore it was eliminated. And this is per our discussion with both Revenue Tax and DOA.
And I appreciate that answer, Madam Speaker. So, which leads to the next question. Since it was part of the general fund, I guess the question that comes to mind is, has the Office of the Insurance Commissioner requested and received any appropriations since the time the fees were redirected to the general fund? In other words, if it was taken out of the fund and they needed the funds, did they ever request for those funds to then be appropriated from the general fund for their purposes.
Thank you. Senator Rodriguez?
Yeah, I can't answer what the insurance commissioner has or has not done. All I know is that based on us here passing a budget, there was really never a number one, a identification of this as a special fund, and number two, there was never a specific appropriation for the Banking and Insurance Commission.
Senator Espaldon?
Well, again, I'm not totally satisfied, but I can see where, without the knowledge, he couldn't answer that, and so I just appreciate him being able to address it. On another issue, though, is like in terms of the 15%, how was that fee adjustment of 15% determined? I mean, was it an arbitrary percentage, or is there really a corresponding relationship to
Figure.
something?
Senator Rodriguez?
Great, thank you. Yeah, no, I have to admit, it was a figure that we took a look at the current fees of the current, what is currently being charged. When was the last time it was adjusted, and what it really takes to carry out some of the work that the insurance commissioner needs to do. And so, we've set it at 15%, not to exceed 15%. However, just like I said earlier, this is something that I myself, at least personally, have confidence that we have these professionals who are on the insurance and banking board that we here confirm are accountable to the people and come before us. That I believe that when they do make these adjustments, that it won't be done arbitrarily, and won't be done just to, just to bring in more revenue.
I kind of have a concern with that, Madam Speaker, in that this, in essence, exempts the Banking and Insurance Board from the AAA law for fee adjustments. And I can appreciate where we say, well, we have to trust them somewhere along the line, but really,
Just a point of information, Madam Speaker, it doesn't exempt them. If they want to adjust it beyond the 15%, then they're subject to the AAA law.
okay.
Thank you.
So just to
Senator
clarify,
Espaldon.
so just to clarify, if it is under 15%, then they do not have to go through the AAA process. Is that correct?
That's what he stated.
Okay. Are there any other funds assessed by Department of Revenue and Taxation that may be adjusted by 15% or less?
Senator Rodriguez, would you like to answer that?
Yes, I know that there's also I believe the vehicle safety inspection fee that we've also had a similar language that gives the director himself the ability to adjust the fees within a certain amount of percentage. I don't know if I forget what the percentage is, but anything above that, he would need to go through the AAA process. And really, it's just to, not to make everything where it's set by statute and everything, we got to do is come back here and introduce a bill and get it heard. It's really, setting the framework, setting the parameters, giving them the tools necessary to make it easier to carry out the mandates that we in this body place upon these departments and agencies.
Senator Jimmy?
I appreciate that answer also. At this time, I'm not objecting to this bill, but I'm not sure I can support it. I'd still have to think about a few other things related to the ramifications of what this does, but I do appreciate what the author is trying to do in terms of trying to make sure that the Banking and Insurance Board has the necessary tools and personnel to be able to work with the ever-increasing complexity of some of the issues and regulations they need to deal with. With that, Madam Speaker, I thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Senator Espaldon. Anyone else wishing to speak on the main motion? Senator Mike Siniclas, you're recognized. Anybody else besides Senator Siniclas? If not, Senator Siniclas, please proceed.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. First, a question. Since we're going to be extricating this from the general fund and going into a special fund, do we know what the total amount is going to be that was previously in the general fund and is now going to be redirected to this special fund?
Senator Rodriguez, would you like to answer that?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Yes, I don't have that exact figure here. And just like I mentioned earlier, we do give a general appropriation to the Department of Revenue and Taxation. As we've discussed over and over here, all the revenues that comes into this government is accounted for in our budget, and so now because we never had a line item special funding to track this will now be able to set that aside, and be able to provide that directly to the Banking and Insurance Commission.
Senator St. Nicholas, does that suffice?
No, and the reason why is because if we're trying to make this money go into the special fund to meet the needs of that particular division, but we don't know how much is going in there, how do we know that it's going to actually meet those particular needs? We need to be aligning the needs of the division with the money that we're going to be providing to meet those needs, and if we don't know how much money this is going to provide, then how can we say this is actually going to be the solution? So I need for us to not only understand how much money we're talking about.
Madam Speaker, I think a point of information.
Yes.
It's not that we don't know. I said I don't have it here, and so if the senator would like, we could take a recess and we'll get that and we'll provide it.
Sure, and if I could also request then in alignment with that, not only the amount, but what that amount is going to be spent on. Because if it's going to be going into this special fund, and if we're going to say it's continuously appropriated for whatever they want to spend it on, then if we're going to do this, what exactly are those needs going to be, and how much are those needs going to be funded at? And the reason why that's important is because we're basically saying that we're taking money out of the general fund and we're putting it into this special fund to meet the needs of this particular division. Now, one of the things that I've had in recent conversations with some of the members of the Insurance and Banking Commission is that we actually need to start having roundtables to reevaluate the entire division, to include the authority of the Insurance and Banking Commission, because some of the commission members are, quite frankly, dissatisfied with the fact that while they are on the commission, the actual commissioner, the one in charge of the Insurance and Banking Division at the board level, is still a government appointee, rather than actually chosen by among the commission members. So there's all kinds of governance issues that we need to begin working through the system, and I'm just concerned that we're going to be creating a whole new funding mechanism. We're going to be appropriating it annually, regardless of whether or not it's aligned with what we think in this body those needs are. And we still really haven't, I think, truly vetted that division. And I can speak from experience, Madam Speaker, because I was in the insurance and banking industry. I've worked specifically with this division. And while we can always go back to the question of resources, I really think that there's an operational issue that needs to be sorted out in that particular division. And so I've always had an issue with putting more money into a situation that actually already has operational issues. You don't fix operational issues by throwing more money at the problem. The money's supposed to go specifically to how it's going to fix those issues. And until I'm comfortable that those issues are enumerated and that this money is going to actually address that, then are we really just putting more money into a division that does not quite know how to use it yet?
Senator St. Nicholas, just based on your concern, we're going to go ahead and take it's almost lunchtime. We're going to go ahead and take a brief recess so that I can consult with legal to see how we can work it. There's an inquiry for financial documentation, so let's just take a moment's recess.
The legislature is back in session. I understand that we need to call then to be able to determine what's in the fund, how much is in the fund. That's going to take some time. So therefore, we will recess until this afternoon at 2 o'clock.